Welcome back, citizens of YouTube. It's been a while, but we've done 100 sealed runs in Gods Unchained. Sealed modes since Tides of Fate have come out, and I am going to impart my wisdom on the lowly citizens of YouTube. That's what this video is going to be about. We're going to look at some successful decks in the past, some unsuccessful decks in the past, deconstruct why the successful ones succeeded and why the unsuccessful ones failed. We're going to build a deck at the end of the YouTube video. I'll go through my process card by card and everything I think about when constructing a sealed mode deck, and I'll leak all of my statistics that I have available on how I performed in my first 100 runs. Now let's go ahead and let's dig into the statistics. Welcome to my spreadsheet of madness. Here we have 100 runs documented here. Entry, number of wins. All of these have a 15 gods entry. For those of you who just heard the news today, they did lower the gods entry temporarily, like a Cyber Monday sale of some sorts. What we have here is my cumulative results. The far right column is the cumulative 7 wins total. I try to get 7 wins every run, and I'm successful over half of the time, barely. So 54, 7 wins out of 100, not bad. Down 24 gods in total. Here's the win breakdown by result. You see 54, obviously 7 wins is my most common result. It's good to see that. It means that most sealed runs you get will be playable. Even some of these that didn't get 7 wins were playable decks. Some RNG just isn't going to always break your way, though. That's true for anybody here. Pretty even distribution from other results, aside from 0. 7s, 6s, and 8s for 1 and 3. So pretty nice even distribution for me personally for decks that don't get 7 wins. And then of course there've been even 3 runs. Well, yes, even I can get shut out. Some of my notable streaks, my biggest streak was 9 7 wins in a row. That is my best streak. And my worst streak is 6 non-7 wins in a row here, highlighted in red. But yeah, I would say that a majority of sealed pools that you have will be playable. The question is, how can you get the most of it? Let's go ahead and look at some of my successful decks, and I'll even poke fun at some of my unsuccessful ones as well. First up, we have a light deck. And now light is what you're going to be seeing about half of the time. Because if you get light as an option to pick as a GP, you take light, you take the Summon Acolyte GP. I don't have other exceptions. I don't have exceptions for when you do not take that. I think it's the clear #1 best god power. It's my clear #1 god in terms of win rate, and there isn't really that much debate. Deception's my #2, and then after that it gets more difficult. But here we had a very interesting pull this time around. This pull had no top end 7+ cards I wanted to run. You can see here this curve just curves out at 6. So one interesting thing, this pull had 2 Basic Isles and 2 Surge Lights, which are very popular cards to run. However, one thing you got to think about when you're building a deck is what is your identity? What is your win condition? And this deck doesn't win by stalling. It's pretty clear it tops out at 6. There's no top end bombs. So cards like Surge Light and Basic Isle, which I think a lot of people, when they see the cards, they just throw it in the deck. Within the theme of this deck, it doesn't make sense. This did get 7 wins. There's nothing flashy. There's nothing sexy about it. There's not really bombs. But it had a theme. The theme was it's going to come out with speed, try to win the board early, get the initiative, and keep the initiative. And with that type of mindset, cards like Basic Isle and Searchlight, which were available to this pull, were left out, and were left out correctly. So I know some of you want to know what my best pull in the 100 is. And there's actually not debate. This is the type of pull that gets everyone on Reddit mad and complain that everything is absolutely rigged. This deck went 7-0 and didn't have to sweat. It is the complete opposite identity of the previous deck. Take a look at this here. We have late game bombs, double Ari's Runeblade, Zealous March, we have Ember Oni. And we had the stall tactics. You know how I wasn't running Surgelight in the last pull? Well, when you've got the top end with Ari's Runeblade, Ember Oni, Zealous March, those type of bomb-tastic cards, you have something to live for. Get to the late game and then kill them with your bombs. That's exactly what this deck did. It also had great one drops to choose from to not get steamrolled early. This deck had everything. This is what I would call a 1% pull, which I think is mathematically accurate since this is my best out of the 100. But just to show you that you can win with different ideas, this is the same god, it's light, right? But the mana curve, much different. We've got those 7+s, we've got those bombs to finish. We're not all about speed, so we have the stall tactics with triple Surgelight, and this deck probably made some poor Redditors cry. Well, 50% of the runs, you don't get to play light. However, my second best, like I mentioned before, is Deception. And here's an example of a 7-win Deception deck. It came out with lots of speed. You see nothing in the 7+ range. If I'm running a 7+ card, I want it to be a bomb-tastic card. Something like Poacher Demon, for instance, which this pull didn't have available to it. You see it running weird things like Annoying Bureaucrat. Well, the hidden part of that card is the key, because it can be a late game finisher. You have Astric Implosion for burst. Very nice low curve, so you're going to have some speed. And we even have some AoEs, Rapture, and we have Scale Dance in here if we fall behind. Nothing super amazing about this deck that jumps out. It looks rather average, maybe even below average, but it has a cohesive theme. It's coming at you with speed, and it does have some finishers. Astric Implosion, Annoying Bureaucrat, they can finish the job if you come up just short with your aggro. So, and one nice thing about playing Deception with aggro is Thievery can just refill resources. When you dump your hand, you've got Thievery, which you can pick out the perfect card for the situation, maybe give yourself a little bit of reach, a little bit more value. And that is kind of the idea behind that. Next up, we have Magic. And I've actually had a recent change in philosophy on what I consider the third best GP. I used to consider it to be Create, the nature GP, but have found that it's kind of very slow. They'll get random nature cards, they often clog up your hand, they're not very curve-centric like Deception, so you get expensive cards and just end up with an overfilled hand and can't play everything. So when I had this deck, I noticed a little bit of a more expensive curve. You see here we got double Charging Orcs, double Inferno here, and we've got Replicator Alpha for some top end, and just tons and tons of answers and removal to things. A very defensive, control-ish deck. It has a clear identity. I didn't think it would have the hand space to run the Create GP, which was an option, with nature being one of my options here. I elected to go with Mage Bolt. This deck did actually play very well. 7 wins, top end Replicator Alpha, and just stall, stall, stall. And that's how it got there. When I was first doing sealed runs, I would have probably leaned with nature, and I'm not sure we would have gotten there, because I think Create would not have been very effective for this god in particular. So we saw some good decks, some decks that got 7 wins. Here is an example of a deck that didn't get there. It got 1 win. This is a recent deck of mine, and I'll go through why I think it failed. You can see here we have a very quick curve, no late game bombs. This deck tops out at 6. But if you look at the cards within the deck itself, you see a lot of like just generic cycling. And I did honestly struggle for playables for this deck, so that's part of the reason why you see that. But you see defensive cards like Revification, unannounced arrivals, kind of slow, stall cards like Wrong Path. And ultimately, I mean, Harp's Cupid is okay, but again, more of a try to get to the late game type of card. Ultimately, this deck just didn't have an identity. It looks like, based on the curve, it should have a lot of speed. It didn't really play out that way. It ended up with 1 win out of 4 games, and it was a pretty unsuccessful run, an unsuccessful deck. Now, granted, sometimes you just get pulls which don't have a lot of cohesiveness, and this was one of those pulls. All right, let's go ahead and enter a sealed, and I'll go card fight by card and tell you my thought process when building a deck. Now we're going to do a sample deck build session here. What we have here is we have 3 different gods. You hit the edit button here at the top right of your screen, and you get to choose between your 3 options. We've got nature, death, and light. We always choose light when it's available. As I mentioned earlier, my tier list would be deception at 2. And then you can debate on the 3rd, magic or nature. In no scenario would I play death or war. So I usually start from the bottom and go up to the top here and basically put in my playables. I pretty much know that you're going to run Beetle, Extortionist, Vesper of Concession, just those solid early game stuff. I feel Selfless Protector is a very, very versatile, underrated card. I like to have that in there. And for now, I'll also toss in a Nightleaf Hunter, and I love Tidal Prayer. This is such a value tutor type of play. We have options with Theric Blessing, which can be very, very strong with light, and particularly the light mirrors when you both are acolyting each other. Being able to get value and draw a card can be good. We'll look at the rest of our deck to see if we want to run these cycles or not, but most likely we'll come back to this card. Here at 2, what jumps out at me? Roadside Checkpoint. This is a win condition. It's actually a 7-cost card, not a 2-cost card. I don't think I've played it at 2 yet. You can argue that you can play it at 2, but it's just not really a thing. I love Devoted Follower. It's got Ward. It's a nice 2-drop. And having 2-drops and 1-drops when you're playing light is very important because you always have something to do at 3 with your GP. Call the Light. I love the value. Basically, for 5 mana, you're getting 3 2/2 Acolytes. That's a pretty good deal. And you can spread it out over multiple turns to make yourself more curve efficient, which makes it even better. So here we're looking at our 3s. There's basically a couple of cards I like here. The Staff of Roots and the Bright Mage. Inescapable Duty is always a very interesting card. It's a high value, slow type of card. I'm not going to put it in yet. This is definitely a card that we can come back to and we can run. Burial Worm is a card that you can go in here. You can go into the search bar and type in dragons and see how many dragons do you have. Well, we have no dragons with Afterlife, so this is just a 3-mana 3/3. And when you're playing light, you've always got a 3-mana 2/2 option without using a card, so this does not get involved into this deck. So that does it for 3s. I'm not really interested in this. And also, this one, you can trigger a friendly Afterlife, and you don't run that. Like, you just don't run that. So here, you always run Perseverance, just a very, very strong card. I really like Warrior Paradise 2, Blitz, and has a lot of potential. I like Dahlia. It's just a very high value card in general. And I also like Landcaller Captain. You go very wide very quickly. So here, looking at what we have here, we've got Sartonian Spearfisher, just a high value card. It is super, super strong. Removal, it's nice to be able to kill big threats your opponents has. And an AoE, there's certain decks that if we're quick enough, you don't run the AoE. I have a feeling that this doesn't feel like one of those, so we'll toss it in here for now. But we can go back and remove it. So here, Opalized Roots, Bifurcating Curse. This is where we get into the very interesting. What do we want our deck to be? Born Again can be very, very effective. Getting ward and a large minion is strong. Is typically a card I like to run. Opalized Roots, I prefer running in low curve decks, but with Bifurcating Curse, Rainkeeper, Selena, I'm going to toss it in here for now. You can argue that this is a mistake, though. Here are our 7s. I like the Void Drake. It's an AoE. It's protection against opponent Zealous March. Unfortunately, even though we did get Light, we didn't get Zealous March, which is just a great card to get and one of the most effective cards, and probably one of the reasons why Light has a very high win percentage alongside their God Power as well. Charging Orcs is definitely a playable card. I don't think it's going to fit into this. I actually prefer the Hydra. It's a lot more consistent. And then here, End Times is just a solid AoE board wipe. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do here. We can go back and look. We can run the Orcs. It's a playable card. Just doesn't fit in here. I got a little bit greedy. I ran all the 6s, but I actually think Opalized Roots fits in because we didn't get too greedy at 7 and 8. Here at 5, we ran all the good cards, ignored all the bad ones. I missed a second Dahlia. That's another thing you got to be tricky about, is that second, that 2 of 2. Yeah, you gotta get that in there. I think this is a super solid card. Nice statted minion with the Echo and a little bit of the side ability, which can come into play in certain situations, particularly when you're playing Light and have Bright Mage, for instance. So here, the 2s, again, with the Warrior and the Canopy Spider, one thing that you can do here is you can type in the search bar, look up Amazons, and I mean, wow. Honestly, I didn't notice this when I was going through this, but here, I think we have justification for both. We've got a lot of Amazons. You don't need that many in play to really get value out of those cards. Obviously, this, you only need one other minion. And this, basically, if you have one other minion in play, when you play it, then you're usually getting enough value. So I actually think there's justification for those two to be in here. And particularly because we didn't have much at 2 anyways. So this fitting in and around the 2 range can be particularly useful. Last card of the deck, we've got options here. Patron Sacraments, playable. Etheric Blessings, playable. I'm going to go with Etheric Blessing. It's just good in the Light Mirrors. It's just a cycle that can also get value. Just a little bit extra. This is less consistent, and I think that this is an interesting deck. This is a deck that it's difficult to evaluate as of right now. Maybe get a better feel as we play it. My prediction is this will get 7 wins, but I could be absolutely incorrect. This deck could easily end a little bit shorter as well. It's not very bomb-centric, but it's got a lot of just super solid cards in it as well. I really think that Titled Prayer is a very underrated card, and we've got some top-end things we can get off of it, like get End Times, for instance, off of that. And being able to play End Times on 7 versus 8 is a huge difference when you get the Mana Surge here. So we'll see how this does. I'll put the result of this deck in the conclusion of the video. We'll see how it goes. We just did the run. We got through it. And at the end of the day, that ended up being 7-win deck number 55. Nothing flashy, nothing amazing at all here. Go ahead and show it to you right here. 7-2. Got the job done. The deck list as we built on stream. Not amazing, but hey, just running solid cards, trying to pilot well, and ultimately able to get the 7 wins that we covet. Sealed right now is a great deal with the Cyber Monday discounts, what I'm calling it. You get a profit of 9.5 gods for 7 wins in addition to all the packs before. And this is with less risk, only 10 gods in entry. Previously, it was 15 gods, and if you went 7 wins, you'd only profit 6 gods. So this is definitely a great opportunity for all of you all to get into sealed mode and, hey, chip up, get some gods. A great way to play and earn a lot of your rewards. A lot of those craftable epics are definitely worth a few dollars a piece. Make yourself some legendaries, get lots of cards. I've already crafted a few legendaries myself. All right, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you the next time I see you.